This is Retro Rambling, an audio podcast discussion about all things retro, with your host, Cyrus Martin.
Yo, hi everybody. This is Cyrus Martin, and today we're talking to a very good friend of mine, a very cool guy. Probably, like how the Fonz is. The Fonz is like the coolest dude in the room. Well, the Fonz has nothing on my friend Eugene Stevens. How you doing, Eugene?
Extremely flattered and wondering who you're talking about, because that is definitely not me.
Well, if you guys don't know who Eugene is, you have not really paid much attention to my efforts on my channel, or you pretty much don't know me, because I've been friends with Eugene since college, since the mid '90s, and we obviously have
96. It would have been 96.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Since before the second Jurassic Park movie, since before the special edition Star Wars movies came out.
Yep. Oh, man.
It's been a minute. So who is Eugene Stevens? Well, Eugene Stevens runs a drug trafficking ring. No, he's a who are you, Eugene? Explain to anyone that's curious about who you might be. Who is this guy that's the Fonz, apparently?
I will try to give you the short version of what I tell people, like if I'm meeting them at, for whatever reason. By day, I'm a campus tech, aka the computer guy at a high school, but no one really cares about that. At night and on the weekends, I run a website called epicallygeeky.com. It was formerly known as One Man Asylum, and I started it with Cyrus. When I had twin boys 9 years ago, things were just extremely hard to try to get anything done, so we kind of shut everything down and rebranded it as Epically Geeky. So I do several podcasts on that. Let's see. I 3D print stuff and design stuff. I have an Etsy store. I sell stuff on my Etsy store, all geeky, things that are related. Oh yeah, and I'm the team lead for GhostBusters ATX, the Austin area Ghostbusters. We're a cosplay group that gets together and does parades and conventions and raise money for charities. We've raised money for Safe Space and the Austin Women's Shelter. We actually are about to start doing some work with I'm not sure if it's a company, it's a group. It's called Girl Start, and it's about getting young girls into STEM related areas, so science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're going to start working with them to try to get some money raised for their group and get these young ladies involved in some geeky stuff. So
that's quite a bit. By the way, if you can hear the mechanical noises in the background, that is not being produced by Eugene. That is being created from these from what you mentioned earlier, your 3D printing. What are you working on right now?
Yes.
Funny
that you should ask that. Currently right now, I'm looking over here to the left. Currently I am 3D printing. Basically it's like a half dome with a hole in the center of it, and it's going to be used to make it's going in a 4-inch piece of pipe that is going to act as two of the air tanks for the roof rack that I'm currently putting together to turn my Ford Flex into an Ecto. So
into what? I'm sorry.
Into an Ecto. I'm turning it into an Ectomobile.
So if people don't know what that means, basically, this is Ghostbusters related.
Yes.
So yeah, Eugene mentioned earlier that he's obviously a really big fan of the Ghostbusters movies and fandom and everything. They've done a lot of events in full regalia, in the full Ghostbusters uniform with the proton packs. Eugene's made some really cool, like cosplay proton packs and equipment. You've got. Do you still have the ghost trap that you made? That.
Oh yeah. I've got it's interesting. It's kind of we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the first pack that I made so several years ago, and we've talked about this on we would do live events at what used to be called Geek Fest, which was a locally operated small convention at the local college here. Actually the college that Cyrus and I both attended, and they ran into a legal issue a couple years back. No fault of their own. This jerk in Florida trademarked Geek Fest, and unfortunately was throwing down the hammer, so they had to change their name. And I jokingly threw out I'm also on the planning committee for that. Hey, why don't y'all just pay for me to trademark Epically Geeky, and y'all can just license the name from me for the event? And they liked it, so they did. So I also have a very small convention named Epically Geeky Expo. Anyway, when I started getting into like doing conventions and stuff like that, previous to that, while I definitely need to lose some weight, I'm still about 60, 70 pounds lighter than I was at my absolute heaviest. And I got on this real big kick after my boys were born and lost a ton of weight. And cosplay was always something that was kind of interesting to me, but specifically being a Ghostbuster. And it's funny, like it's funny how the brain works, and that you're like, oh yeah, I can kind of see why I would be interested in that. And then I actually like think about it and go through my history, like growing up or whatever, and I'm like, well, obviously this is why. I can talk about that in a second. But anyway, so yeah, I made what was called a scratch build or a junk build proton pack. I found there's a website called gbfans.com, and they have like plans up now. The plans are like a decade old, so the problem if you try going that route, it's like, man, some of this stuff isn't even made anymore. There are people out there that like insist on it being like movie quality and stuff like that. I am not one of those people. Anyway, I made a proton pack, and I made two smaller ones for my boys that were made more based off of the packs that were in the real Ghostbusters toys. And my sister-in-law, Lainey, had moved up here, and she was interested in joining me in this ordeal. So I made her a proton pack, and we actually did an event for the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, Answer the Call, at the local movie theater. And we had a ton of fun doing it. We were like, man, this is a lot of fun dressing up like a Ghostbuster and going out and doing stuff. And working with Geek Fest, they wanted us to go to a convention that's in Austin, which is actually coming up here in about 3 weeks, called Classic Game Fest, to help promote Geek Fest at this convention. So we went down there, and lo and behold, Lainey and I met and joined up with the Austin area Ghostbusters. Previous to this, I had no clue about this whole community or whatever. There's a movie out there. Some people in the Ghostbusters community kind of think it's cringeworthy. I think it's perfectly fine. But it's a movie called, and it used to be streaming on Netflix. It's not on Netflix anymore. You can probably find it streaming somewhere. It's called Ghost Heads, and it talks about the Ghostbusters cosplay community. There's been a community almost since the first movie, like definitely starting after the second movie. But there's been groups of people that have, gotten together, and they do this type of thing. They're doing exactly what I'm saying. Go to conventions, do parades and stuff, raise money for charities. Some of the groups that are super active, there's one in Arizona that is just huge. Like they've been recognized as an official charity themselves. But yeah, they do a bunch of stuff, but every state has at least one group. Texas, we actually have multiple ones. Like I said, I'm part of the Austin group. There's a Dallas group, a San Antonio group, a Houston group, an El Paso group, and then some smaller ones kind of here and there. But every state has at least one. Almost every country in the world has a group. Asia and Africa are a little spotty, but yeah, there's Ghostbusters all over the world. In fact, I've got two large Oh, well, they're frames. I've got 2 large frames full of patches. That's one of the other things is every group has their own styled patch using what Uncle Dan Aykroyd used to refer to as the Moogly. And so yeah, the one that for the Austin group is instead of being the red no logo, it's kind of a burnt orange because we're here right next to UT. And instead of doing like the hand signal for 2, using 2 fingers, it's 2 fingers held up like hook 'em horns. So that's our logo. But like I said, every group has their own. Some of them like looks like a Texas star. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of this stuff, and I got into the group and kind of, I don't want to say took it over. The people who were in charge of it were stepping away, and we're looking for someone to kind of step up and keep it going. And it ended up being me. So it's just constantly become a larger part of my life. With the new movie coming out, of course, everybody's super excited about that. But yeah, I've completely designed my own proton pack. It run and 3D printed it. There's plans out there to use an Arduino, which is just, it's like a very tiny, tiny little computer board. And I am not a programmer, but not even in the slightest. But there's a guy who put out some code, and there's a lot of it out there just for free, and was like, "Hey, you can use this to do it." And it's great code. I went in there and added some things to it, like my Proton Pack. If you've ever played the originally it was on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and they've actually since re-released it on the newer consoles, including the Wii. It's a Ghostbusters the video game, and one of the game mechanics was you could only fire for 13 seconds, and then the pack would overheat, essentially so that you couldn't just constantly run around, shooting everything with the stream. But it's based on that, so that if you fire my pack for 13 seconds, the lights go really fast, it starts making a warning sound, and then I've got it hooked up so it even smokes. And to be a little on the extra side, I specifically use marshmallow flavored vape. There's no nicotine or anything in it, so it's not like harmful or anything. It just is the flavoring, as it were. And so whenever my pack overheats, it spews out this smoke, and it smells like toasted marshmallow. And of course, anytime anyone smells it, I'm like, yeah, that's hard to get out. So, but yeah, I've done. I pretty much have all of the equipment at this point. Even to the point I've done a little design work on my own. The international trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie came out, and at the very end, there's a kid holding a pair of the Ecto goggles, and he hits a button, and a Polaroid pops out the side. And I thought, man, that's really cool. That's something that we hadn't seen. And so I designed a pair of goggles, and I have them on my Etsy store. You can either buy the 3D printed, they're not finished. Like, you've got to do all the sanding and painting yourself because that takes forever. Or you can buy the plans and print them, 3D print them yourself. But it will allow you to buy a Kodak. It's called a Kodak Snap. It's a kind of like their newest version of a Polaroid camera. But you slide it in there, and it does give you a little bit of room to look through the goggles. But you can hit a button, and it's a little on the slow side. But about 10 or 20 seconds later, it will print an actual like Polaroid type picture. And I'm hoping to actually, use it at the conventions and stuff. Maybe hopefully to raise some money for, whatever charity we're working with. So
you're definitely, you're definitely involved in this Ghostbuster stuff.
Yeah. Like, I spent most of today, trying to figure out, so while I'm not ashamed of, this by any means. I mean, I've, walked around in complete, regalia all the time. It's not, an issue or whatever. While my 9-year-old boys right now say, oh yeah, we'd love to ride around in an Ecto. Not so sure how they'll feel in a couple of years when they hit middle school. So I'm trying to get all of this done so that I can turn it into an Ecto, but it'll be quote unquote convertible. So I can take the magnetic signs off the side and essentially use a hoist system that I found on Amazon and pull the roof rack and everything literally off the top of this thing. So it'll just kind of hang over my car whenever, it's not being an Ecto. So it'll kind of have a secret life itself. So, I mean, if you look hard enough, I'm sure you'll be able to still spot, which car it is driving around. Cause I do have 2 Autobot logos on it. So.
Yeah. Speaking of, you brought up Autobots. There's another big, obviously a big franchise that I know that you're really into, in a lot of different ways. The Transformers. You've used Optimus Gene as sort of a name, a handle that you've used in the past, and
So when we first started One Man Asylum, I had the idea that everyone should have a handle or at least something what they're going to go by. Cy was like the one person that was like, no, I'm going by Cyrus Martin. All right, cool. That's you. But everyone else kind of had a handle, and to the point that I did research on it. And if now there's a slight chance maybe there's an account out there that's not me, but for the most part, if you find an Optimus Gene, it's me. So, which is funny because I had, I'll give my email out to people and they'll be like Optimus Gene, and some people will be like, wasn't that kind of kiddie? Don't you want to use like your first name, last name? And I'm like, there are multiple Robert Stevens out there, which is actually my first name. There's even multiple Eugene Stevens out there. I'm like, this is a branding thing. Like, if you look for Optimus Gene, you're going to find me. And when I explain it that way, it makes sense. So, unlike, Georgia Boy 2189 or whatever, it's just, I say that because I used to teach, and I'd tell these kids, I was like, all right, well, you need to come up with a username or whatever. And I can't tell you how many of them use the same thing, just with a number tacked on. And that has always driven me insane. Like, there was one time, and I think it was my Xbox account, that for whatever reason, it wouldn't let me use Optimus Gene. I don't know why. It made me tack on like a 01 or something at the end. I finally got that fixed, but it took years to do that through Microsoft. But yeah, like that drives me insane. So like I said, if you find an Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or something like that, it's me. I'm not extremely active, but it's me. So
I know that.
But yeah, Transformers wise, sorry, didn't mean to jump in there. So yes, I'm involved with that in that. That is my handle. I love Transformers, and that's actually one of the things I kind of wanted to get into here in a minute. But my biggest seller for my Etsy store is I guess you would say a person-sized version of the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. If you have not seen the original 1986 Transformers movie, and I don't want to completely be that guy, but I will say I'm going to be that guy for a minute. It is the only good Transformers movie. You know what? I take that back, though. Bumblebee was a good movie. I enjoyed the Bumblebee movie, the movie that came out just a few years ago. Not really a fan of the Bayformer movies. Anyway, if you've seen the original, Hasbro never really gone.
I want to ask you a question. I just want to jump in for a second. When did you develop? Like, we've talked about the Transformers movies before, and whenever we would talk about the Michael Bay movies, I had a very strong opinion about them. And I know that earlier on, you were a little bit more open to them. I think you were not as critical as I have been in the past. Have you sort of tightened up about that? Have you gotten a little? Has your opinion sort of shifted about that?
So here's the thing. I still ascertain that they were good to have, and because we can get into that here in just a second. But I still enjoyed the first movie for what it was. I kind of understood at that point. It's like, well, it was never going to be exactly like the cartoon that we grew up with. I mean, I kind of knew that. The third movie I thought was okay. I don't know if they actually did their homework and looked back at the original cartoon series, because there were a lot of tips of the hat to stuff that happened in the original cartoon series. So I thought, well, maybe just maybe they actually have kind of done some research and they're going to try to make this mirror the cartoon series a little bit more. And then that fourth one came in, I'm just like, no, I'm done. And then after that, what was the fourth one? I think was the one with the Dinobots. And I never saw the fifth one, which was Night something. I don't remember. Apparently they were trying to turn Optimus Prime into a bad guy at some point. And they've even announced a sixth one. And it sounds like they're going to be bringing in the Beast Wars stuff, which I never was a huge fan of. I thought the cartoon series was okay, for what it was. But, yeah, I don't want to say it's necessarily soured, but after seeing Bumblebee, I'm like, no, someone gets it. Like someone understands that while this movie is, I don't want to say targeted at people our age, people in their late 30s, early 40s. They understand that this movie should be for kids. Like it's a kids movie, but it never talks down to you. And it's the relationship between Bumblebee and the girl in the movie is very sweet. But then we get these awesome scenes of this fight on Cybertron, and it looks fantastic. And I'm just like, no, someone gets it. Like, and that kind of is what made me really make the turn on that, was that no, it wasn't that we just couldn't get this thing. It's they didn't want to. Like it was just, I don't understand that, especially with Steven Spielberg being the producer on it. But geez, talk about a rabbit hole that I could go down there. Like,
yeah,
a lot of his stuff in the last decade or so, I'm just like, I don't know, Steven. Maybe it's time to rest on your laurels, buddy.
Let me ask you this. Sometimes, because we grew up in an era where, it was sometimes difficult to get what we wanted. Like whenever a movie would come out, or a show would come out, or a toy would come out, or a game would come out, it was like we would just have to sort of settle for whatever we got and try to make the best out of it, because a lot of times they weren't aiming it at us. I don't know who they were aiming it at a lot of times. And so we would try to sort of figure out how to enjoy what they were giving us, and sort of like, you should be grateful that we're even doing this. And, there's kids in China that don't get to enjoy their, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we kind of have had, at least I think from my perspective and from, the friends that I have and everything, from the discussions that I've had, I think that we probably, we're more understanding and more, willing to tolerate some of the strangeness. Like, I mean, come on, if you're a Batman fan, right? The Batman movies Joel Schumacher made it really difficult to continue to be a Batman fan.
Yes.
Just as an example. So what happened with the Bayformer movies, I think a lot of us tried really hard to get something good out of that. We really tried to like enjoy those movies and celebrate those movies, but for, because you could name off a lot of things that you were happy about, but it was difficult to face and discuss what was, a lot of these things that unfortunately didn't, shouldn't have been in these movies, and shouldn't have been the focus of these movies. So I know when we had talked before about the Transformers movies, I felt like very sympathetic to how you were feeling, because I understood, you're a big Transformers fan, obviously, as big a Transformers fan as anything. And you wanted to enjoy these damn movies, because it's amazing they're even making Transformers movies, and that's right. But again, that goes to what I'm saying. We were like, you should be grateful they're even making the and that's what we're used to. That's what we're used to.
Here's an apt comparison. And don't get me wrong, I still think they're fine movies, but let's go back and look at the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
We were ecstatic for what we got for the X-Men movies, because they were decent movies. Don't get me wrong, they're decent movies. But they even poked fun in the movie about, like when Wolverine says something or other about the black, suits they're wearing, and they're like, "Why do you want like, yellow, spandex?" And a lot of us were like, "Yeah, kind of. That's kind of what we wanted." But we understand it has to be more realistic. It has to be more grown up. And then Marvel came on the scene. It was like, "Oh no, like I'm going to give you a fucking, sorry, I didn't mean to use cuss. I'm going to give you a talking raccoon in a tree here." And we were like, yes, that's what we want. And DC is finally kind of, I think, hopefully maybe getting that idea, because the new Suicide's coming out. King Shark is in it. Like it's literally a shark walking around and and talking and stuff, and we're just supposed to be like, yeah, okay, cool. And I think we're, and Bumblebee kind of did that for us. It was like, wow, yeah, no, we could actually have a Transformers movie that actually has a decent story. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be just explosions and stuff, which was crazy because after I think the fourth movie came out, there was an interview with one of the writers, and they literally said, and this is one of those times it's been burned into my brain. They literally said, "Well, it's giant robots from outer space that turn into cars. It doesn't have to have a good story." No, it does.
Right.
It's infuriating.
But that's Hollywood, right?
That's yes.
And unfortunately, me even saying that sort of gives you an idea of where we're coming from here. You know, we just shrug our shoulders all the time and just go, well, you know, what are you going to do? That's, you know, we got something good. Let's focus on the good and let's not dwell on the bad. And so I think since we're kind of going there, that's sort of why some of us older guys who are kind of into the geeky stuff, you know, maybe we get into kind of like some heated discussions with other people who are more critical because we're like, no, we you know, be, you know, because we feel like, hey, at least we got something, and there are some good stuff. There is some good stuff there, whereas, you know, increasingly, I think with especially younger people, and you know, there's a more popular movement, I guess, to be a lot more specifically critical and not be tolerant of anything that deviates from the expected, so to speak. And that really came to fruition after Star Wars, after the newer Star Wars movies, I think.
Yes and no. I do think we are probably like you, and I agree with that we are probably more so forgiving because, like you said, it's kind of like, well, at least we got this. And I mean, looking back at some of the movies that we got that were just like, well, we got a He-Man movie.
Right.
You know, and even though I still love that original Ninja Turtles movie. You know, it wasn't what we were expecting. Number one, there was cussing in it. It was just like, whoa, like this is very adult, especially for little kids. I was hoping to see literally Ninja Turtles. Like, how crazy, you know, more crazy could that be? But it just the internet has become, and I blame a lot of this on the fact that everyone thinks for some reason or another, and you and I've had this conversation on and offline before, that freedom of speech, for somehow or another, it got polluted to the idea that it's not that you have the right to have your own voice. No one's saying that. What we're trying to say is we also have the right to not hear you. Like, I'm not telling you to shut up, but I'm also telling you, if I don't want to listen to your opinion, I don't have to. And it's become this huge problem where people have confused the idea that an opinion and fact are the same thing, and that's not the case. Like, you can talk to people and they're like, that movie was absolute garbage. Well, that's your opinion. No, it was garbage. No, that's still your opinion. Like, you could, unless you want to start pointing out specific things, but even then, you know, there are people out there who like bad movies and they'll admit it. Like, everyone's got that garbage movie that they're like, I know it's horrible. That's a crap movie.
You're tearing me apart, Eugene.
Yes. And it's just like, you know, it's still technically an opinion, and you're welcome to your opinion, but you know, that's not the end all be all. And, you know, it's kind of really soured me on a lot of fan stuff. You kind of had mentioned on your previous episode, you know, talking with Mike about how Ghostbusters 2016, aka Answer the Call, was very derisive, and it was. And I even sent you a message after the fact. I was like, yeah, I said, you know, people have kind of mellowed out, but you do still find people. What's funny is we have a new guy who's joining our group, and I was messaging him back and forth on Facebook, and he's actually a little older than we are. He's been doing this for a while, and I was just like, hey, just here are kind of the rules. Everyone likes what they like. Some people like Extreme Ghostbusters. Some people don't. Some people like Answer the Call. Some people don't. You're more than welcome to have your opinions and stuff. But if they're based on anything that's, if it's just because it was chicks in the movie, sorry, we don't want you. And we're not going to tolerate any, I don't want to say stupid opinions, but we're not going to tolerate any stupid opinions. Like if you want to say, no, I didn't like the movie. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the way the story was done, blah, blah, blah. If you point out specific things, yeah, cool. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's cool or whatever. There are people, like I said, that liked Extreme Ghostbusters. I was past that age and it never grafted onto me. And, there are some people out there that are huge fans of it. But yeah, it just, this idea that my opinion is not only right, but it's the only opinion has become so toxic. And along with that, we get the whole, well, this is what I think should happen and whatever. And if that's not what happens, they just want to write it off. And I don't want to say I'm allergic to it, but my God, it drives me insane when you try to go online. Well, I think, so for while we're recording this, I think 4 episodes of Loki has come out on Disney Plus, and like I don't read or watch anything until like days afterwards, until I've like kind of digested it, because I see these people will post online, well, I think this should have happened, or I think this is the way it needs to go, and they just get set on this idea of what they think the thing should be. And if it's not that, if it's anything but that, they just don't want to accept it. And kind of going back to like you were saying, it's like, well, at least we're getting it. And you were talking about, bringing it back to Transformers. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the Michael Bay movies. I may still go back. I've shown my boys parts of the first one just because, I mean, the transformations are freaking awesome. Even if the robot that comes out of it is very organic and does it, you're just like, wow, that used to be a truck. Okay, sure. But yeah, I've shown them parts of the movie or whatever, but I'm still glad those movies came out because, and same thing goes for Ghostbusters 2016. Same thing goes for even that G.I. Joe, those G.I. Joe movies that came out. Unless you have something big in the public's interest, and that can be just a cartoon in some cases. So like, because Ninja Turtles I don't think Ninja Turtles has been as big. It's almost as big now as it was back in the 90s. Like at least from the collecting aspect, the biggest toy stores out, or the biggest toy producers out there right now, are all producing these really, really deep, super detailed, awesome action figures. And so like the collecting community is almost to the point they're like, what? Slow down. Like we've got more than enough out there to collect. I don't have enough money to collect at this point. But keeping stuff in the public's, lexicon of what's interesting and popular, if it doesn't stay in there, it fades away, and in some cases will never come back. He-Man's managing to do that. Like there's been a core group of He-Man fanatics forever that have kind of kept that going, and now they had a reboot back in 2000. Netflix is about to premiere a new series. It's called He-Man Revelations, done by Kevin Smith. It looks fantastic. But like Hasbro has released, they went back and released they're not the exact original models, but they look like the original He-Man action figures, and they're sitting at Walmart right now. They've done the same thing for real Ghostbusters. And there's that nostalgia of wanting to go back and get those things, but also seeing it move forward. Netflix, I actually in our back channel talk released the newest trailer for Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy. The last one is about to premiere here, and they're pulling in Beast Wars stuff. And some of these toys are just fantastic. And I go to the store and I'm just like, I'm just gonna buy it. It's just gonna sit on my shelf. My God, I really want that toy. But yeah, and the thing I always refer to is yeah, you may not have liked the new movie, but like when Answer the Call came out, we got re-releases of, or we got new versions of the original Ghostbuster, the 4 original guys. This Diamond Select, which is a company that makes higher end action figures. I've got the entire first wave. It's sitting up here next to me. They redid action figures from the first movie, and in fact, kind of a build a figure type thing. It actually built the rooftop set from the end of the movie. They did a second series where they did part of the firehouse, but they also did like a more updated version of the real Ghostbuster action figures. I never collected that one. It was just kind of a money thing and a space thing. Eventually, I do run out of space here, but at my office. But at least it keeps people talking about it, and the thing I always want to go to is like, well, when was the last time you went and bought a Buck Rogers anything? Or talked about Buck Rogers or did anything? Do you even remember Buck Rogers? And the answer is no. Like, Star Wars is immortal.
Well,
Transformers
I have Buck Rogers on my Atari 5200, okay. So
But like, Transformers is becoming mortal. Ghostbusters is becoming mortal. Ninja Turtles, Transformers, Star Wars, like these things, they kind of keep coming out and stuff. And there have been versions of Transformers I had absolutely no interest in. My wife's younger brother, he's at least a decade younger. May actually be more than that. But when he was starting to get into Transformers, it was the Armada, Transformers Armada, and that was heavily anime based. And he had some of the action figures and stuff, and I thought they were okay. They kind of reused some of the characters or whatever, but they were never mine. But I'm like, at least they're still going. At least they're still interesting, and people still have interest in this stuff. Because that's what will a lot of times now cause people to go like, oh, well, what if I made an updated version of this original thing? And so, well, hell, I'm sitting right here in front of me, going back to the 3D printing stuff. So for Christmas, I got a different type of 3D printer. The 3D printers I mainly use are called FDM printers. They use plastic. They melt plastic that's a lot like weed or cord, to be honest with you. And it builds up and it makes the three-dimensional object. The other 3D printer I got is uses resin. It's a resin printer, and it uses a UV light to basically kind of instantly cure it. And it allows you to get a lot more detail. Well, one of the projects for the summer that I never got around to was I'm going to 3D print. I've got still working on getting a really good 3D scan of my head, and I'm going to 3D print my head. And you can't see it because it's an audio podcast, but I have a Ghostbusters Plasma Series Ray stands. I'm showing it in the camera right now to Cyrus. I have one of those sitting right here on my desk. And the idea is I'm going to print my head in that scale. I'm going to pop off Ray's head because, he's got a little bit of a pudge, kind of like I do. And I'm going to make an action figure of myself because that's freaking awesome. But yeah, the fact that we even have this plasma series of the original guys that came out last year, even though, yes, the 3 of the 4 guys, of course, we're not going to get Egon back, but 3 of the 4 guys are reprising their roles in this new movie, and we're getting action figures of them from their heyday. And that's why keeping things interesting, keeping things in the public's eye and interest is, even if you don't agree with it, even if you don't like that version, it at least will keep it going.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that was weird. My printer has never made that sound.
You might want to check it, make sure.
Well, it's done. That's actually what I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, you've never talked to me when you were done. Like, normally it just goes, and then just sits there.
It's funny, we were talking about it, and then it does that. Like, it's almost like,
yeah, no.
Was it listening? It's like,
I was talking about the resin printer, and it got jealous.
I can't let you do that, Eugene.
Yeah, no joke.
Like, oh no. Oh, so
going way back in the conversation real quick, just to finish this up. So anyway, I 3D print a version of the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. It has an LED in it. It turns on or whatever, and it's quote unquote life size. So like, it's roughly the size of a real person holding it up to their chest like Optimus Prime was in the original movie. Anyway, I sell a ton of these. Hasbro has never made one of these things. And right before COVID happened, I had a customer contact me and goes, "Hey, I would like another one of these made. Is there any way you can do a rush job on this and get it to me? I'm going to a convention." And I was like, "Sure. Can I ask why?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm going to get it signed." And after I talked to him a little bit, I was like, "Okay, tell you what, I'm going to sell this to you for price. I'm not going to charge you anything else. If I ship my personal one that I made for myself to you, could you do me a favor and I'll pay for it and get this done?" And he said, "Yep." So sure enough, I shipped off my Autobot Matrix of Leadership that I printed myself. He got it signed, shipped back to me. So on my shelf, I have the Autobot Matrix of Leadership that I designed and 3D printed, signed by Peter Cullen.
That's amazing.
Who, if you're not familiar with, is the voice of Optimus Prime. He has been the voice of Optimus Prime all the way back in 86 or 84 when the cartoon originally started. He was the voice in the movie. He's the voice of Optimus Prime in the Bayformer movies as well. There's only a few times that they have not used him. He is the voice of Optimus Prime. So the fact that I have one signed by him is just, I want to meet the man, but I don't know how things are going. He is also getting older. I don't know how many more cons he's going to do. So it was like, this may be my best shot, but believe me, if I find out, and I've already told my wife this, if Peter Cullen comes to anywhere in the state of Texas, it doesn't matter where it is, what time, whatever, I'm going to go meet the man. So, yeah. And probably 3D print a Matrix for him and be like, here's yours. So,
so Ghostbusters, Transformers, if you had to have a third pillar in that, would it be
Star Wars?
Star Wars. Okay. Well, I'm glad you picked one, because now I'm going to ask you before we move on to other stuff here. F, marry, kill. F, marry, kill.
So is that gonna be your thing?
That's what I do.
Going forward? Yep,
we will find 3 things for everybody to do this. So this is yours: Star Wars, Ghostbusters, and Transformers.
Jesus,
and why? I want to know why.
I should have said something completely off the wall and stupid. Jeez. I can't get rid of Star Wars because it is so...
Well, see, you're thinking about it the wrong way. Go the other direction. Which one's the most important? Which one would you marry?
I mean, on one hand, I'm turning my car into an Ecto. It's kind of hard to not pick that. I literally dress up as that as a thing. I can't, like I said, I can't get rid of Star Wars because my boys and I we love watching it, and it's so much fun.
Deal with that after you decide who you're marrying. First marry and then figure that out.
Jeez.
This is not for real, Eugene. We're just making
I know this, but the problem, I dress as one and raise money for charities as one. I make money off of another one, which would be Transformers.
Wow. So this is going to be interesting, isn't it?
I'm going to have to.
You have to marry Ghostbusters, right? You have to.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to say Ghostbusters.
I mean, you put so much time and love and care, and you don't want to, you want Ghostbusters to have its dignity. You don't want to leave it hanging out there and not marry it after everything you've done. You know what I'm saying?
I hate you.
So can we say marry Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Okay. We're married to Ghostbusters. Done. So now, who do you F and who do you kill between Star Wars and Transformers? Which one do you love the most? Which one has given you the most? Which one do you think will continue to give you the most?
Okay, now if you're going to frame it that way, then I have to keep Star Wars, because even with some new Transformer stuff coming out, the stuff of it that I enjoy is all retro, all retroactively
Well,
tied to it.
well, you know what, dude? Sometimes looks fade. Sometimes the magic's not there anymore, and you have to move on in this specific sense, like not really, but like,
I guess I'm killing Transformers as much as that kills me to say that.
wow. I
And
never thought I would hear you say this. This
the
is,
only reason I say that is because, like,
I can't believe you're killing Transformers. Optimus
dude,
is dying again. You are
yes,
murdering.
you're absolutely right. Yes.
Oh my
But
God.
here's the thing. Every Friday night I sit down and watch, right now I sit down and watch The Bad Batch with my boys. And we're caught up on all the movies. Um like it's Star Wars. Like everyone in the world freaking knows. Even if you say you don't know you know a little Star Wars. You know at least the little green guy. You at least know some Star Wars. I can't get rid of Star Wars. So it would have to be Transformers.
Well,
That sucks. Because Optimus Prime literally is growing up. I had two heroes, and it was my grandfather and it was Optimus Prime. And they taught me things about what it is to be a good person.
So you're really not, you don't need to think about it like that for this little exercise. We're not literally getting rid of Transformers.
Yes, but you used to hold my feet to the flame on stuff like that whenever, like, we would ask, because I would ask a question and be like, all right, well, this or that. And you're like, so that goes in the fire. No, that's not what I'm saying. No, that is what you're saying.
Well,
I'm having flashbacks.
But don't worry, Eugene. One day an Autobot will rise from within our ranks to light our darkest hour. So
Yeah.
Until the day.
Well, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
When you first asked if I wanted to be on the show, it's funny because you asked me if I wanted to be on the show and I said, yeah. And then I listened to the first episode and you and Mike, which believe me, I hate this game. I hate the game of, well, I'm a bigger fan than he is. But the fact that y'all talked about Ghostbusters the whole time was just like, really? You didn't talk about, but he's a big Ghostbusters fan too. So I understand the conversation and stuff. And I was like, well, then what am I going to talk to Cy about? And I thought about it. And here's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Toys. Because here's the thing. So there was a short period of time where we would do a show or something on the weekend. And after the show, everyone would kind of be like, all right, well, I'm going to bed and hang out, and Cyrus and I would just hang out late at night and just, hang out and chat and talk or whatever. And more often than not, we would wander over to this little website called eBay.
Ooh, my dirty.
And we would start looking at specifically, yes, there were props, there were replicas, but there were toys that for one reason or another we either never had or had and would love to have again. And the reason why I was thinking about this was the question I have for you is, where do you come down on variants? So let me explain. So first off, have you ever had a chance to watch that series on Netflix, The Toys That Made Us?
Well, we watched a little bit of it.
Okay, we watch a little bit. Okay. One of the things they talked about with, especially in the episode where they're talking about He-Man, Masters of the Universe, is that they refer to it as the kitchen sink. You could throw in anything. Sure, let's make a guy that looks like a bee. Let's make a guy that looks like a crab. Whatever. It all fits within Masters of the Universe. So they were constantly just coming up with new characters. I mean, the main body was pretty much the same. They just do a little bit of a different sculpt. Constantly coming out with new characters. And Transformers went through the same thing. I mean, heck, almost everything goes through the same thing. Ninja Turtles is one of the biggest. I refer to offenders as this. But so the problem is like with the first wave, they come out with the main characters. So if you first got into Transformers, you could go to the store and you could go buy all your favorites. You could get Optimus Prime and Megatron and Soundwave and so on and so forth. But if you didn't get into Transformers right when it came out and a year or so went by, even though those were still some of the main characters, like Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Soundwave and Ironhide were all in, all the way through the second season of Transformers. And that lasted a couple of years. So if you didn't get in at the beginning, the unfortunate part was you could not find, because there was no eBay, there was no aftermarkets like we have now. You could not find those prime characters that you were looking for. And Masters of the Universe kind of figured that out a little bit. because people were like, well, yeah, I can get Buzz off and I could get, Ram Man or whatever, but I want He-Man. Like, where's He-Man? Where's Skeletor? I can't find him. So they came out with some different versions. So like, remember the He-Man that had battle damage
Oh
in the
yeah,
chest?
yeah,
Yeah. So they came out with that. Ninja Turtles, a little later on, a little further down the line, figured this out and kept re-releasing, and I think got ridiculous with it. Not only did you have the original run of the Ninja Turtles, but then you had them dressed up like samurai. You had them dressed up as, to tie in with the Olympics. Maybe they were, all doing some kind of an Olympic sport. Um, there were just some crazy variants that they had out there. And before I get to my opinion on it, I'd like to know, what is your opinion on that? So you go to the toy store and you're like, I want a Leonardo. I don't have a Leonardo. I want a Leonardo. And the only Leonardos they have are the one that are dressed up like a samurai or dressed up like a hockey player or something like that.
hmm Well, it's an interesting and it's an interesting question, right? We both grew up in the early '80s, and Ninja Turtles was a little bit late for me as a toy franchise, but I did experience what you're talking about with, for instance, they had like GoBots that were different colors. They had Transformers that were like that. They had GI Joes that had different uniforms and different stuff like that. What you're talking about with the Ninja Turtles, that's okay. I'm not really going to get into that because it's not really my thing. I never have really bought Ninja Turtle toys, but I can tell you this: when I would see those for GI Joe, I would have a couple of different feelings, or Transformers or GoBots or whatever. One of them is, holy crap, look at this. This is cool. This is different. This is a whole different way of, oh, wow. It's Psykill from GoBots, but he's completely different colors. That's weird. Cool. But then you're like, but I just want to get the real one. And how come I can't find the real one? And all I can find is this other version of this toy, and that was the problem that I had with it. Yeah, do your variants. Sure, have fun. There's different things out there, different poses for figures, and, Leia's wearing her regular outfit. Now she's wearing her disguise outfit from Return to the Jedi. And, I that's cool. But give me the option to be able to buy the regular version, because I mean, I don't know how we didn't become friends until we were basically grown. Like, we became friends,
Right, yeah.
At that point. But when I was a kid, the toys I bought, I was buying them because I was making up narratives with my toys. We were playing with toys and making stories about the figures and how they would interact with each other. We were creating like real world, real life cartoons in our backyards and in the hallways and the floor of the living room, wherever we were.
Yep.
So what a toy looked like, what the, what clothes it had on or whatever, it was important. It was very important because of that. So I have very mixed feelings about it because, like I said, on the one hand, I love the variants. I love the option to have these other things, but give me the ability to find what I am looking for. You don't take away the real stuff and replace it with the other stuff. I don't know. Am I kind of answering what you're thinking there?
No, absolutely. Because it's funny. The first answer you gave was completely the opposite of me, and then you kind of circled back around to kind of how I was at. It's funny because I listened to. There's a couple of toy shows that I watch on YouTube, and there's a particular toy podcast I listen to, and they love variants. They've always loved these variants, and some of the people on some of these shows are a little younger than we are, just maybe 5 or 6 years. But it did make a big difference. So like Ninja Turtles, I was kind of on the outside edge of Ninja Turtles when they first came in. But like they were prime target for Ninja Turtles. and they love these variants. And I've just always been like, no, just keep making the original ones. Like I said, I think Ninja Turtles is also, like I said, the one where I felt they went just like way over the top with it. It's like I said, they had different versions for all these different things. As I've gotten older though, I don't know, I don't want to say come to respect them, but I understand them, and there are some of them I even think are actually really kind of cool. So for example, um with the He-Man characters, they have taken some of it's basically the that He-Man body sculpt, and they've done classic WWE characters, or what would have been WWF characters.
Right.
And not that I have an interest in buying it, but I'm just like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily buy, but like there was a line that came out several years ago whenever Answer the Call was coming out. They took and it was the normal wrestling action figures that they had out at the time, but they took some of their biggest wrestlers, and they turned them into Ghostbusters. So there's like The Rock, there's John Cena, there's some of the more modern ones, but they had like The Rock had, like, I think it was the flight suit, but like the arms were like ripped off or whatever, and they made the Undertaker like transparent, so like a purple transparent ghost version of him or whatever, and I'm just like, that is so weird, but it's also kind of really cool.
Yeah.
And like, so I have this Optimus Prime behind me that's the Masterpiece. Oh God, Masterpiece Transformers came out at least maybe a decade ago, maybe. Yeah, it had to have been at least a decade ago. More than a decade, because I started collecting them before I had kids. Because after I had kids, I was like, there's no way I can afford these. But I always said, man, if they ever come out with like an adult version of a Transformer that's like larger and like more articulated or whatever, I will buy them all. And God love me, I wish I could have done that. But when they're like, oh yeah, here's the new Optimus Prime, $150, I was like, ooh, oh yeah, not gonna be able to do that. Gonna have to pick certain ones. But yeah, like they did a variant of this Masterpiece Optimus Prime, and he's repainted in white and red and green, and it's with the Ghostbusters logo, and they actually had a tie-in comic and all this other stuff. And I never got it, and it's one of those things every so often I pull up eBay and I'm just like, is this the day I pull the trigger? And yeah. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the variant thing because, like I said, growing up, I had this, I don't want to say hatred, but I just did not like them. I disliked the idea. I was like, no, this is it. This, there should be the one version. Because it's so funny.
I think it's different. Like what you're talking about with the Ninja Turtles is different because it's like taking the characters and putting them in some other context. Like you've got like the samurai Ninja Turtles and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like taking the thing that's real and like, it's sort of like taking it to like this multiverse thing or something. I don't really know how to explain. Just, it's like taking it and mixing it with some other random idea. Maybe the samurai thing's not that random, but like, I know there's other examples of things they've done with the Ninja Turtles where it is very random, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Beach Boy Ninja Turtles or something. I don't know, whatever, like
yeah,
the Ninja Turtles are the Beatles now or something, like you mix some
exactly. Yeah.
Right. And it's like that I don't like. That I think is stupid, and I personally don't like it. Whatever, it's toys. Have your fun, do your thing, collect them, do whatever. I don't care. But for that, I think I feel the same way you have felt. But if it's like just another uniform for a character, or they come with a different, like Snake Eyes comes with this wolf, and then this time he comes with a different dog because there's an episode where there's something with a different dog or something, you know what I mean? Whatever, just as an example.
Right.
That's awesome. I love that. And when they would do...
Okay, so like going back to Ninja Turtles, like I said, some of these bigger toy companies these days, they've released like they released, and the funny thing, man, toys have gotten, a lot of people want to complain that toys are not as good as no, toys have gotten much better. I don't care, fight me on that. Like, yes, they may not be made of metal like they used to be, but their fingers actually move. They're one of the biggest things about Transformers nowadays is every single Transformer somewhere it's either hidden within them or hidden underneath. Somewhere, all of their stuff fits within and holds on and is part of that action figure. Like, there's no more of this. Optimus Prime had hands that like basically, slid into two little slots at the end of his arms, and everyone freaking lost. Or Starscream and the rest of the jets, they had hands that slid onto the end. Everyone freaking lost those. But nowadays it's all built in. But that's one thing. But anyway, go back to what I was trying to say was, so these companies released these super awesome looking Ninja Turtles, and now they're starting to release like, all right, we're going to do Ninja Turtles, but now we're going to make them look like the movie version. And they've done that, and they sold extremely well. And so now they're like, all right, well now we're going to give you Raphael, but with the jacket and the hat whenever he met Casey Jones. And I know as a kid, I would have been like, no, I don't want that. Like, that was just one scene in the movie. As an adult, though, I'm like, no, that was a freaking awesome scene.
No, dude,
that's a really cool idea.
I would have loved that if I was into the Ninja Turtles toys, because then you could recreate the stuff from the movie. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I get what you're saying, though. I understand. Like, you think, hey, there's the one version, and then what's up with this other stuff, especially when they would do wild variations that didn't seem to make any sense, like, oh, it's an all pink version of He-Man or something. And you're like, what? Why is this? Yeah. You're like, that doesn't make sense. But if there was some reason, like I said, like in a cartoon, they had a different outfit on, or there's this vehicle that looks this way for some episodes, and then it changed for other episodes, and they have two variants, or that I think is awesome. Okay.
And see, one of the other things they've started doing is like they've started packing in like multiple face sculpts or multiple hands. So like the Ghostbusters I have, actually, I don't know if this one does it or not. No, it doesn't. Has different hands. So like you can actually have them without the gloves on. You can have them with the gloves on. You can have them so that they can hold them, whatever. But like one of these companies right now that's finally releasing some awesome looking Back to the Future characters. Like Doc Brown has like a normal face. It also has his like, like his screaming, his mind's been blown face. And I'm just like, see, that's cool. Don't make me buy the whole other Doc Brown, mind blown, version. Give me a couple different heads. I'll just pop the head on there. So if I'm recreating, the scene or whatever, when I'm setting, showing off my action figures or whatever, like I can have Doc Brown normal and Doc Brown mind blown or whatever. So I think that's another fun thing that they start doing.
You and popping heads off of things and putting different heads on. I don't know. I think you have a head fetish. Let's be Eugene. I think we've basically run out of time here because we could talk literally forever. And next time I want to get into the next time that you're on, I want to talk about some things that are more related to our retro history together. So I want to talk about your kung fu movies that you made.
Oh my God.
I want to talk about our ongoing personal our never ending feud on Nintendo 64. And I'd like to talk about what we personally have thought about, like a lot of things that happened a little bit further in the past. We had an old show, which you did mention, we didn't really get into too much about, that we did, called it was One Man Asylum. We did group therapy.
Group therapy was the name of the show. Yep.
I'd like to talk about that and kind of go into what that was all about, some of the experiences we had together doing that, some of the experiences we had together doing various things in our lives, whether it be independent film type stuff, whether it be related to video games or related to doing shows and our education. because
I was going to say television shows for PBS. Yes, we
Yes.
should definitely talk about that.
There's a lot. There's so much we could go into because I think now, especially because everyone is fascinated with a lot of the retro aspects of television and things and broadcasting, what we learned and what we experienced together, doing all of that at the TV station and doing the various things. There's a lot to go into, but this show has pretty much run out of time. I'm trying to keep these things to about an hour here. So let's wrap this up. Eugene, I want to thank you so much for coming on my show. You know, you my boy. Eugene's my boy. We have worked. We've been friends for forever. Even we would go long periods of times where life leads you in different directions and we didn't even stay in touch. And then all of a sudden we would get back in touch and it was like we never had any time apart. We're just like those kind of close friends. I've always enjoyed talking with you. I always will. And I definitely look forward to the next time. But what I want to give you an opportunity is here at the end. Is there anything you want to leave with? Anything you want to tell people about things you have to do or going on you might want to share? Is there anything you want to end with as we wrap this up?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I do several podcasts. It's all on epicallygeeky.com. We've got 4 different shows going on right now. I'm the host of 3 of them. Epically Geeky, Sustainably Geeky, Marginally Geeky, and Creatively Geeky. If you're the creative type and you just want to hear a bunch of other creative types just kind of talk about what we're doing, check out Creatively Geeky. If you like reading, particularly like we do some other things besides just sci-fi and fancy stuff, but we have a book club called the Marginally Geeky Show, where we read books and discuss it that way. But if you're just down for just general geekiness, and a lot of it does tend to be retro type stuff, check out the Epically Geeky Show. We're actually recording an episode this coming Saturday night where we're going to be going back to a topic we've previously done, and we're going to make Happy Meal toys for movies that never got them, and in some cases probably never should.
So if you are listening to this in the future, which is entirely possible, go back and look for that because that sounds like fun. They do a lot of fun topics like that. And I do occasionally pop up on their channel and do stuff with them. But again, that's something we can talk about next time. The next time we do a show together. So Eugene, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for sharing some of this awesome stuff. Stay off of eBay.
Tell me about it.
Unless you
don't start.
eBay's a dangerous place. I mean,
yes, it is.
Yeah.
I just had to buy some vinyl stickers for the side of my car, and as soon as I reactivated my eBay account, it's like, oh hey, by the way, and I'm just like, no.
Hey, you know what? Hopefully next time we do this, you'll have your car ready to roll, and you can talk to me a little bit more. Maybe give me a little demonstration of some kind of some of what the car can do. That would be really cool to get to go there to see a little bit more about what's going on with that car. So maybe next time.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in, as they say. People don't say it anymore, I guess, but thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for joining us for this podcast. If you are interested in participating in discussions that we have, I do have these on my YouTube channel. You can find it on YouTube. Sometimes I will do a live session where I broadcast on YouTube and record episodes as well. So there's opportunities to interact there. But if nothing else, I do have a Discord, and you can look me up that way as well and participate in discussions that way. Eugene, people can go to epicallygeeky.com to check out his stuff, to check out all of the different shows and the different various things and projects and articles. And it's a conglomeration, sort of a network of very interesting things that you have on Epically Geeky. So if you're interested in anything he's been talking about, I'm sure you'll find some really good stuff on his channel if you'd like to go check out epicallygeeky.com. Okay. Well, dude, let's wrap it up. I really do thank you for being here. You're an awesome friend. You're an awesome guy. Maybe not as cool as the Fonz. Okay. But
Yeah, definitely not.
but to me, you'll always be my Fonzie.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dan. Man, this was a lot of fun.
No problem. All right. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for checking out Retro Rambling, an audio podcast discussion about all things retro. If you enjoyed it, then check back soon for more. See you next time.